When FBI agents knocked on Karen's door, I'll never forget the look on her face. Just months earlier, she'd told me this property will be mine soon. Now she was being handcuffed. But this story goes much deeper. ... Double quotes. On a warm morning in May, I looked out my kitchen window at my garden and saw Karen Peterson standing right next to our fence line. Her hands were on her hips, head tilted down, as if she was measuring something. She was in her mid-40s, with dark blonde hair and always perfect makeup. But that morning, her expression was different, calculating, planning. "Good morning, Karen," I called out from the window. She jumped suddenly, like she'd been caught doing something forbidden. "Oh, Sarah, good morning," she said, trying to smile quickly. "I was just admiring how beautiful your garden is." I felt something was wrong in that moment, but it would take months to learn just how wrong things really were. I'm Sarah Michel, a 38-year-old landscape architect. I live in the Pine Valley HOA community with my husband David and our 13-year-old daughter Emma. Our home was inherited from my grandmother, Rose, a beautiful corner property with an expansive garden. My grandmother had bought this house 50 years ago and built every corner with love. Karen and her husband Ron had moved in as our next-door neighbors 3 years ago. At first they seemed normal, maybe a bit too nosy, but not dangerous. Or so I thought. In the weeks following that morning, Karen's behavior became increasingly strange. When I worked in my garden, she constantly came outside, asking questions, tucking potos. "How old is this sycamore tree?" she asked. One day, "About 60 years old," I said. "It was just a small sapling when my grandmother planted it." Karen said, writing something down. "And where exactly is your property line?" "The fence line," I said, feeling slightly uncomfortable. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," she said, with that artificial smile. "You know, it's important to know boundaries for neighborhood relations." In mid-June, I received a strange letter. It came from a real estate attorney, one I'd never heard of. The letter stated there was a boundary dispute regarding my property and that a formal review was being requested. "David, look at this," I said that evening, showing my husband the letter. Could Karen know something about this? David, as a real estate developer, recognized these situations. He read the letter carefully, and his brow furrowed. "This looks serious," he said, "but something's odd. This attorney doesn't normally deal with these kinds of small boundary disputes. He handles much bigger corporate matters. What should we do?" "Let's consult our own attorney. Call Thomas Reynolds first thing tomorrow." When I went to Thomas's office the next morning, he greeted me with a serious expression. He was in his 60s, an experienced real estate attorney who'd known our family for years. "Sarah, this letter is very concerning," he said. "The opposing party's claim is that part of your property, exactly 400 square meters, was actually recorded incorrectly and should belong to your neighbor." "What?" I nearly jumped from my chair. "That's impossible!" "This house has been in my family for 50 years. All the documents are in order." "I know," Thomas said calmly, "but Karen Peterson seems very serious. Plus, she's hired a very expensive attorney. This is the corner section of your garden, including your pool and that beautiful sycamore tree." My heart started racing wildly. How can I fight this? This is completely absurd. We need to find the old deeds, survey maps, all the original documents, Thomas said. "Have you talked to your mother?" My mother, Linda, lived in Phoenix. When I called her that evening, her voice carried concern. "Your grandmother's papers should all be in the old trunk in the attic," she said. "But Sarah, be careful. I met Karen once when she visited. There was something in her eyes, something greedy. After Ron's business went under, I heard they were in financial trouble. Do you think this is a gamble? Are they trying to scare us into giving them money? I don't know, but be prepared." When I climbed into the attic, my grandmother's old leather trunk was there, exactly where my mother said it would be. Inside were decades of documents. After hours of searching, I found the original deed from 19... Everything was clearly shown. Property boundaries, measurements, all the details. But then I found something else. A notebook in my grandmother's handwriting. Inside were notes about neighbors, garden plans, and one entry caught my attention. August 1975 had the western boundary professionally surveyed. The Peterson family previous neighbors had disputed our line, but the state surveyor confirmed we were correct. Official document in the safe. "David," I shouted, "find this." That night, we spread out all of my grandmother's papers on the table. And there it was, a state-certified boundary survey document from 1975, definitively proving we were correct. "This ends the case," David said, relieved. But we were being too optimistic. In early Huli, the formal court summons arrived. Karen was officially suing us, and her claim was shocking. Not only was she disputing the property line, but she was also claiming that my grandmother's deed transaction in 1973 was fraudulent. Thomas was pale as he read the file in his office. "Sarah, this is a very serious accusation. Karen's attorney is claiming that your grandmother obtained the deed through fraudulent means. They're accusing a 50-year-old document of being fake." "This is insane," I shouted. "My grandmother was the most honest person." "I know, but we have a problem. Karen has submitted strange documents. A document from 1968 showing that part of your property actually belonged to the Peterson family at that time." "How's that possible?" "I don't know yet, but our researchers are looking into it." That weekend, there was an HOA meeting. Barbara Chun, our HOA president, led the meeting at the Pine Valley Community Center. Barbara was 62 years old, with red glasses, blonde hair, and always wore a red blazer. She was fair, firm, but compassionate. "Next agenda item," Barbara said, "the property dispute between Sarah Mitchell and Karen Peterson. While this is a private legal matter, it affects our community. I want to hear from both sides." Karen stood up, holding folders full of documents. "President Chun, this isn't just a simple boundary dispute," Karen said in a dramatic voice. "This is about justice and truth. The Mitchell family has been illegally using land that belongs to my family for 50 years. I have proof." "Lies," I interrupted. "My grandmother bought that house honestly." "Please," Barbara said firmly. "Sarah, your turn will come." "Karen, continue." Karen smiled that cold, calculating smile. "According to 1968 documents, part of that land belonged to the Peterson family. But Rose Mitchell somehow got the deed in 1973 with forged documents. I can prove it." Community members started whispering. Some were looking at me suspiciously. "Your turn, Sarah," Barbara said. I stood up, my hands trembling. "Barbara, community members, these accusations are completely baseless. I have all of my grandmother's original documents. I have state-certified surveys. This document Karen is showing from 1968, we don't even know if it's real." "It's real," Karen shouted. "And I'll prove it in court," Barbara said. "This isn't a courtroom, but I'll say this. If someone in this community is playing with forged documents, I want to find out. Both parties will present their evidence in court. The HOA will remain neutral in this process." After the meeting, Barbara approached me. "Sarah, I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Karen has been constantly complaining to me about you for the last 3 months. About your garden, your tree, everything. She seems very... obsessed." "I don't know what she wants," I said desperately. "Neither do I," Barbara said thoughtfully. "But be careful. She seems very determined." In August, court hearings began. Judge Eleanor Rodriguez was a serious-faced, middle-aged woman. At the first session, she listened to opening statements from both sides. Karen's attorney, Marcus Webb, was a confident man in an expensive suit. "Your Honor," he said, "my client is trying to correct a long-standing injustice. The Mitchell family illegally took land that belonged to the Peterson family. We have original documents from 1968. Original..." Thomas interrupted. "Your Honor, the authenticity of these so-called documents should be seriously questioned." "We'll discuss that in due time," Judge Rodriguez said. "Continue, Mr. Webb." As the hearing progressed, Karen's attorney presented his evidence. blurry photocopies, old maps, and suspicious-looking documents. But one document was particularly striking. A deed document from 1968 with an old Peterson signature. "How is this possible?" I whispered to Thomas. "I don't know," he said, "but our researchers are currently investigating that document's history." 2 weeks later, Thomas urgently called me to his office. His face showed both shock and excitement. "Sarah, we've discovered something incredible," he said. "Karen's 1968 document." Just then the door opened, and a private investigator entered. Michelle Torres, a digital document analyst. "Ms. Mitchell," Michelle said excitedly, "that document is fake. Professionally fake. The paper is the right age. The ink is the right type. But under microscopic analysis, we detected the document wasn't created in 1968, but approximately 6 months ago. Extremely high-quality forgery, but still fake." My breath caught. Karen ... created forged documents. "It appears so," Thomas said. "And this isn't just a small boundary dispute anymore. This is a serious crime document forgery, attempted fraud of the court. What will we do? We'll immediately submit the report to the judge. But Sarah, be prepared, if this is true. Karen will face very serious charges." At the next hearing, Thomas presented the evidence. Michelle Torres took the witness stand and explained her detailed analysis. "This document was printed with modern laser printer technology." Michelle sighed. "Laser printers didn't exist in 19... Moreover, we detected modern whitening agents in the paper's chemical composition. This document is at most 1 year old." A shocked silence filled the courtroom. Karen had turned pale, and her attorney, Marcus Webb, was clearly panicking. "Your Honor," Marcus said, jumping to his feet, "my client submitted this document in good faith. If there's a problem, sit down, Mr. Webb." Judge Rodriguez said coldly, Senora. "Peterson, stand up." Karen stood up, trembling. "Ms. Peterson, did you provide this document?" I, Karen stammered. "I found it in an antique shop." "Which shop?" the judge asked sharply. "I don't exactly remember. ... double quotes. "Of course you don't remember," the judge said, "because no such shop exists. Ms. Peterson, I'm issuing an arrest warrant for attempted fraud of the court. I'm also referring this file to the prosecutor's office. Federal document forgery is a very serious crime." "No," Karen screamed. "I was just trying to get what was fair. That land should be ours. Officers, escort Miss Peterson out." When 2 court officers approached Karen, she turned to me, her face bright red with rage and desperation. "This is your fault," she screamed. "That land should have been ours, premedita serbetit." "That's enough, Miss Peterson," one of the officers said, escorting her out. When I got home that evening, David and Emma were waiting for me in the kitchen. "Mom!" Emma shouted, throwing herself into my arms. "Dad told me everything. Did Karen do something bad?" "Yes, sweetie," I said, hugging my daughter tightly. "She did something very bad. But that night, lying sleepless in bed, I had a feeling this wasn't over. Why had Karen done this? Was it just greed? Or was there something deeper?" And I would learn the answer the next morning when Thomas called with an urgent phone call. "Sarah, sit down," he said seriously. "Federal investigators searched Karen's house, and what they found... is unbelievable. This isn't just about your property. Karen has prepared similar schemes against at least 8 different neighbors over the last 2 years. Files full of forged documents, detailed plans, everything. This is an organized fraud scheme. What? And there's more. Ron, Karen's husband, is cooperating. He's telling everything. Apparently, this wasn't Karen's idea initially. ... Whose was it?" Thomas took a deep breath. "Marcus Webb's. The attorney. He set up this plan, and in Pine Valley, he targeted not just your property, but a total of 9 valuable properties. They'd created a network. Karen was just the first executor. That's when I understood how deep, how dark this was. "Thomas," I said, my voice shaking, "has this turned into a conspiracy?" "Yes, and federal prosecutors are currently trying to understand exactly the extent of it. Sarah, you weren't just a victim. You were coincidentally the first person to stand up. And because of that, you're probably, double quotes, there was a silence on the phone." "What, Thomas?" "In danger. Marcus Webb is a man with very powerful connections, and right now he's desperate. The FBI is recommending you be placed under protection." That night, at exactly 3 o'clock, our outdoor sensors went off. When I looked out the window, I saw a dark figure in our front yard. Someone was walking around our property. While David called the police, I ran to Emma's room, and right then, I heard the front door handle turning. "I want to ask you, have you seen strange neighbor behavior in your neighborhood? Has anyone ever shown suspicious interest in your property?" Share your story in the comments, because what I learned from this is, if someone is showing too much interest in your property, there's always a reason, and that reason is rarely a good one. In the next part, you'll learn the full extent of Karen's plan and how big the fraud scheme Marcus Webb orchestrated really was. The FBI coming to my door was just the beginning. And I haven't told you yet, among the files found in Karen's house, there weren't just property plans. There was also a detailed journal recording my every move for the last 6 months. When I left the house, who I talked to, even Emma's school schedule. Karen wasn't just stalking me. She was studying me, as if I was part of an operation. And the scariest part, at the end of the file was a note in Marcus Webb's handwriting. Phase 2 begin June. June had come and gone. What was Phase 2? And was it implemented? The FBI discovered Karen's house filled with forged documents targeting 8 neighbors. Her attorney, Marcus Webb, orchestrated the entire fraud scheme. And now, at 3 a.m., someone was trying to break into our home. My hands trembled as I grabbed Emma from her bed. She was half asleep, confused. "Mom, what's happening?" she whispered. "Baby, stay quiet," I said, carrying her to our bedroom where David was already on the phone with my... The doorknob rattled again, then stopped. Through the window, I saw the dark figure move toward the side of the house, testing windows. "Police are 3 minutes out," David whispered, holding a baseball bat. "Stay in the closet with Emma." But then the figure did something unexpected. Instead of trying to break in, they pulled out a phone, aimed it at our house, and started taking photos. Bright flashes illuminated the yard. Car headlights suddenly flooded our street. The figure ran, disappearing between houses. 2 police cars screeched to a stop in front of our home. Officer James Martinez, who we'd met during the court proceedings, knocked on our door. "Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, are you safe?" "Yes, but someone was photographing our house," David said, pointing toward the side yard. Officer Martinez and his partner searched the property. They found fresh footprints in our garden soil, leading to the fence line heading directly toward Karen's house. "We'll check next door," Martinez sighed. "But I need to tell you something. Karen Peterson made bail this afternoon, $400,000. My stomach dropped. "How?" "She was arrested for federal crimes." "Marcus Webb posted her bail," Martinez said grimly. "We believe he's trying to keep her quiet. But it gets worse. Ron Peterson filed for divorce this morning and is now in witness protection. He's testifying against both Karen and Webb." "So Karen is desperate," David said. "Exactly. Which is why the FBI wants to talk to you tomorrow morning. They believe you're not safe." That night, none of us slept. Emma stayed in our bed, squeezed between David and me. Every sound made us jump. Every car passing by made my heart race. At 7 a.m., 2 FBI agents arrived, Agent Lisa Chun and Agent Robert Morrison. They sat in our living room, their expressions serious. "Mrs. Mitchell," Agent Chun began, "we've been investigating Marcus Webb for 18 months. He's run this scheme in 4 different states. California, Nevada, Arizona, and now here in Colorado. The pattern is always the same. Identify valuable corner properties, create forged historical documents, hire desperate people to file lawsuits, and either win through intimidation or settle for large sums. How many victims? I asked. That we know of? 37 families, Agent Morrison said. Total estimated fraud, $12 million. But you're the first one who fought back hard enough to expose the forgeries. Why me? Your grandmother's meticulous records. Agent Chun explained. Most victims didn't have documentation going back 50 years. They settled rather than fight. But you had proof, ironclad, certified proof. When our forensic team examined Karen's documents alongside yours, the forgeries became obvious. What happens now? Agent Morrison leaned forward. Marcus Webb knows you're the key witness. Without your testimony, his entire operation falls apart. Ron Peterson's testimony helps, but you're the one who can put him away for 20 to 30 years. So I'm in danger. Yes, Agent Chun said bluntly. Webb has connections to some very unpleasant people. Last night's incident, we don't think that was Karen acting alone. We believe Webb sent someone to intimidate you. David stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. What are you suggesting? We leave our home. Not leave, Agent Morrison said, but we'd like to place a protective detail on your house. Undercover agents in the neighborhood, surveillance, the works. Just until Webb is in custody. When will that be? I asked. Soon, Agent Chun said. We're building an airtight case, but we need you to testify before a grand jury next week. Can you do that? I looked at Emma, who was listening from the hallway, her eyes wide with fear. I looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. I thought about my grandmother Rose, who had worked so hard to build this home, this legacy. Yes, I said firmly. I'll testify. The next few days were surreal. Unmarked FBI vehicles parked on our street. Agents dressed as joggers, dog walkers, and gardeners patrolled the neighborhood. Barbara Chun, our HOA president, called an emergency meeting. Everyone, please settle down, Barbara said, her red blazer bright against the community center's beige walls. I know there are concerns about recent events. Concerns, shouted Tom Harrison, a neighbor from 3 houses down. There are FBI agents crawling all over our neighborhood. What's going on? Barbara raised her hand. I'll let Agent Chun. FBI agent Lisa Chun, no relation to Barbara, stood up. Good evening. I know this situation is unusual. Without going into specifics, we're investigating a major fraud operation that has targeted multiple properties in Pine Valley and other communities. The Mitchell family is assisting us. We ask for your patience and cooperation. Is it true that Karen Peterson tried to steal Sarah's property? Asked elderly Mrs. Gomez. That's part of an ongoing investigation, Agent Chun said carefully. What I can tell you is that several residents should review their property documents. If anyone has been approached about boundary disputes or received letters from attorneys claiming historical ownership issues, please contact the FBI immediately. A murmur ran through the crowd. Then Mark Sullivan, who lived on the other side of Karen's house, stood up. I received a letter, he said, 3 months ago, from an attorney named Richard Cross. He claimed part of my backyard was historically owned by another family. Primera Setliv paid them $75,000 to go away. Mr. Sullivan, Agent Chun said gently, you need to speak with us after this meeting. You may be victim number 38. The room erupted. 3 more neighbors stood up, admitting they'd received similar letters. All had settled, paying amounts between $40,000 and $120,000. All had been contacted by attorneys associated with Marcus Webb's firm. Barbara's face was pale. This happened in our community, and I didn't know... It's not your fault, Barbara, I said, standing up. These people are professionals. They count on shame and fear keeping victims quiet. After the meeting, I found myself surrounded by neighbors, some offering support, others asking questions, a few looking at me with suspicion. Sarah, whispered Jennifer Park, a usually quiet neighbor. "Can I talk to you privately?" We stepped outside. Jennifer looked terrified. "I didn't want to say anything in there," she said, "but Karen approached me 6 weeks ago. She asked strange questions about my property, my family history. She offered to help me research my deed. I said no, because something felt wrong, but now I'm scared." "What if I'm next?" "Tell Agent Chun," I urged. "Right now. You might have information that helps the case." Jennifer did, and her information proved crucial. Karen had approached 7 neighbors with friendly offers to help research their property histories. Jennifer had kept Karen's emails, and they showed a clear pattern of gathering information for future fraud attempts. The grand jury hearing was scheduled for Thursday, September 7th. Thomas Reynolds prepared me extensively. "Sarah, they'll ask you to walk through everything chronologically," he explained. "Be precise. Don't exaggerate. Don't minimize. Just tell exactly what happened." "I'm nervous," I admitted. "You should be," Thomas said honestly. "Marcus Webb's defense team will try to discredit you later. But right now, just focus on the truth." The morning of the hearing, I dressed in a conservative navy suit. David wanted to come, but only I was allowed in the grand jury room. Agent Chun met me at the courthouse. "Ready?" "Say, asked as I'll ever be." The grand jury room was smaller than I expected. 23 ordinary citizens sat in tiered seating, watching as I was sworn in. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Bradford, began his questions. "Mrs. Mitchell, please tell the jury about the first time you noticed unusual behavior from your neighbor Karen Peterson." I told them everything. The morning I saw Karen measuring our fence line, the strange letter from the attorney, finding my grandmother's documents, the forged 1960s deed, Karen's arrest, the break-in attempt, and in your professional opinion as a landscape architect, Bradford asked, would someone naturally take the kind of interest in a neighbor's property that Mrs. Peterson displayed? Absolutely not, Permetta sighed firmly. Her behavior was obsessive and invasive. She wasn't admiring my garden. She was studying it like a target. Bradford showed the jury copies of Karen's journals, seized from her house. Page after page of notes about my schedule, my family, my property. Photos of our house from multiple angles. Sketches showing how our land could be subdivided. "And this," Bradford said, holding up a document, "is the forged 1968 deed that Mrs. Peterson presented to the court. Our experts have confirmed it was created sometime between December 2022 and March 2023. Mrs. Mitchell, what would you say to someone who claims this was an honest mistake?" I looked directly at the jury. This wasn't a mistake. Karen knew exactly what she was doing. She had detailed plans. She coordinated with Marcus Webb. And according to the FBI, I wasn't her first target. I was just the first one who refused to be scared into silence. After 3 hours of testimony, I was dismissed. Agent Chun was waiting outside. "You did great," she said. "The jury will almost certainly indict. What happens to Karen now? She's still out on bail, but Webb is our bigger target. We're tracking his movements, his communications, everything. He'll slip up soon." That evening, Barbara Chun called me. "Sarah, I need to tell you something," she said. "I've been going through HOA records from the past 3 years. Do you know how many boundary disputes have been filed in Pine Valley during that time? How many? 14. 14 separate cases where neighbors suddenly claimed historical ownership of parts of adjacent properties. Most settled quietly. Sarah, I think Marcus Webb has been systematically targeting our entire community. 14 families, at least, and I'm finding similar patterns in the HOA records from Meadowbrook Estates, the community 5 miles away. Sarah, this is bigger than we thought." The next morning, Agent Morrison called with urgent news. "We've arrested Marcus Webb," he said. "We caught him trying to board a private plane to Mexico. He had fake passports, $250,000 in cash, and a laptop with encrypted files we're now decoding." "Is it over?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "Not quite. We still need your testimony at trial. But Webb is in federal custody now. No bail. He won't hurt anyone else. What about Karen? There was a pause. Karen is missing. What? She cut off her ankle monitor yesterday afternoon and disappeared. We have agents searching, but she's in the wind. Sarah, you need to stay vigilant. She's desperate and possibly armed. The fear came rushing back. Should we leave town? We'll increase your security, but running won't help if she's determined to find you. That afternoon, I picked up Emma from school with an FBI agent following discreetly behind. As we pulled into our driveway, Emma suddenly grabbed my arm. Mom, look. Our front door was open. Not broken, just open. The FBI agent immediately called for backup and pulled his weapon. Stay in the car, he ordered. Lock the doors. Emma and I watched as 3 agents entered our house. 5 minutes later, Agent Chun emerged, air face, green. Someone's been inside, she said. Come with me, but don't touch anything. Our home had been ransacked, not violently. Methodically, drawers opened, papers sorted, cushions lifted and replaced. Whoever had done this was looking for something specific. My grandmother's documents? I said, running to the study. The old leather trunk was open, contents scattered across the floor. But nothing seemed to be missing. What were they looking for? Agent Chun wondered 10 Primera Sa W Italiano. On my desk, someone had left a note, written in red marker, in Karen's distinctive handwriting. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. Emma started crying. David, arriving home from work, looked at the note, and his face went white with rage. That's it, he said. We're leaving. Tonight, we'll go to a hotel until this is over. But Agent Chun shook her head. With respect, Mr. Mitchell, running won't solve this. Karen knows where Emma goes to school. Where you work? She's been planning this for months. We need to end this now. How? I demanded. Agent Morrison entered, holding up his phone. We just got a hit on Karen's credit card. She used it at a gas station 40 miles from here, heading north toward Wyoming. We're sending units now. She's running, David said. Or she wants us to think she's running. Primera sighed slowly. A cold realization was forming. That gas station, is it near the border? Yes. Why? Because Karen knows we'd track her card. She's not running. She's leading you away. She's coming back here. Agent Chun's eyes widened. You think she's doubling back? I know she is. This note, it's fresh. The marker is still wet. She was here less than an hour ago. While your agents were following her credit card north, she circled back south. How can you be sure? Because that's exactly what she did during her first divorce from her previous husband. Thomas told me about it. She led her ex-husband on a wild chase, while secretly returning to empty their house. It's her pattern. Agent Morrison was already on his phone, redirecting agents. All units, target may be returning to Pine Valley. Set up a perimeter around the Mitchell residence and Peterson residence. She won't go home, I said. Too obvious, but she'll stay close. She's obsessed with this property. She won't leave without... double quotes. Without what? Agent Chun asked. I walked to the window, looking at my grandmother's sycamore tree, 60 years old, standing proud in the corner of our yard. She won't leave without hurting me one more time, I said quietly. And I know exactly how she'll do it. That night, at exactly 11 p.m., our security cameras detected movement in the backyard. But it wasn't Karen. It was a teenage boy, no older than 16, carrying a chainsaw. He walked straight toward my grandmother's sycamore tree. When agents tried to apprehend him, he started the chainsaw and screamed, "She paid me $500! She said it was her tree." And then we saw her, Karen, watching from the shadows at the edge of our property line, her phone recording everything, a triumphant smile on her face. Have you ever dealt with someone who seemed obsessed with taking what's yours? Someone who wouldn't stop no matter how many times they lost. Share your stories in the comments, because what I learned is this: some people don't want justice, they want revenge, and that makes them far more dangerous than any criminal motivated by simple greed. In the next part, you'll see how Karen's final desperate act backfired spectacularly, leading to charges even more serious than fraud. And you'll learn what Phase 2 of Marcus Webb's plan actually was, and how close it came to succeeding. What I didn't mention yet, when FBI agents analyzed the encrypted files on Marcus Webb's laptop, they found something that made my blood run cold. A folder titled Mitchell Contingency Plan. Inside were photos of Emma leaving school, her complete daily schedule, maps showing every route she walked. There were also floor plans of our house, detailed enough to show which bedroom was hers, and at the bottom of the folder, a single note: if legal approach fails, proceed to Phase 2. Leverage the child. Karen hadn't just been stalking me. She'd been planning to kidnap my daughter. Karen escaped custody and broke into our home. FBI discovered Marcus Webb's Phase 2 plan included kidnapping Emma. Now a teenager with a chainsaw approached my grandmother's tree while Karen filmed from the shadows. "Stop, FBI!" Agent Morrison shouted, running toward the teenager. The boy froze, chainsaw still running, his face pale with terror in the security lights. Agent Chun and 2 other agents emerged from their positions. Surrounding him? "Drop the chainsaw, now." The boy let it fall, hands shooting up. "I didn't do anything wrong." "A Lady Padme," she said. It was her tree, but my eyes were fixed on the shadows where I'd seen Karen. She was gone. "Fan out," Agent Morrison commanded. "She's here somewhere." David pulled Emma and me back inside. Through the window, we watched FBI agents searching our yard with flashlights, calling out positions, securing the perimeter. The teenage boy sat handcuffed on our lawn, crying. Agent Chun came inside 20 minutes later, her expression frustrated. She got away. Again. We found her phone in the bushes. She dropped it when she ran. But she knows this neighborhood better than we do. Every fence line, every alley, every hiding spot. "The boy?" I asked. "Tyler Jensen, 16 years old, lives 3 blocks away." Karen approached him at a gas station this afternoon, offered him $500 to cut down her tree that was on her property. She told him it was a civil matter, that you'd stolen her land. The kid believed her. Is he in trouble? He's a minor who was manipulated by an adult fugitive. We'll probably release him to his parents with a warning. But Sarah, we have a bigger problem. Agent Chun held up Karen's phone. Before she dropped this, she was live streaming on social media. To over 3,000 viewers, she was narrating the whole thing, claiming you stole her property, destroyed her life, turned the FBI against her. She's trying to make herself look like the victim. David's jaw clenched. "Can people see our faces? Our house?" "Yes." She tagged the video with our address. "We're getting it taken down. But it's already been screen recorded and shared. Sarah, you might want to make your social media accounts private." Too late. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. Messages from strangers, some supportive, many hostile. "You rich people always steal from the poor. Karen Peterson is a hero for standing up to you. I hope karma gets you. But also, stay strong, Sarah. We believe you. Don't let them intimidate you. The truth always wins." Emma was reading over my shoulder. "Mom, they don't even know what happened. Why are they being so mean?" "Because Karen is a good liar, sweetheart," I said, pulling her close. "She's making herself look sympathetic." Barbara Chun called at midnight. "Sarah, I just watched that video. It's all over the Pine Valley Facebook group. People are taking sides. This is tearing our community apart. What should I do?" "Tell your story," Barbara said firmly. "The HOA board will hold a press conference tomorrow. We'll explain what really happened. The forgeries, the FBI investigation, all of it. We won't let Karen control the narrative." The next morning, September 9th, Barbara organized a press conference at the community center. Local news stations arrived. Reporters set up cameras. FBI agents stood in the background, monitoring. Barbara spoke first, standing at a podium in her signature red blazer and red glasses. "Good morning. I'm Barbara Chun, president of the Pine Valley HOA. I'm here to address recent events involving resident Sarah Mitchell and fugitive Karen Peterson." She laid out the facts methodically. The forged documents, Marcus Webb's fraud scheme, the 37 victims across 4 states, Karen's arrest and escape, the attempted destruction of my property. "Karen Peterson is not a victim," Barbara said firmly. "She is a criminal who participated in a conspiracy to defraud homeowners of millions of dollars. The Mitchell family exposed this crime, and for that, they deserve our support, not harassment." Then it was my turn. I stepped to the podium, hands shaking, looking at the cameras. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. 3 months ago, my neighbor tried to steal my property using forged documents. When I fought back with the truth, she escalated to stalking, harassment, and attempted destruction of my family's legacy. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful. I'm just a landscape architect who inherited her grandmother's house, and I refused to be bullied into giving it up. I held up copies of the forged 1968 deed and my grandmother's authentic documents. This is a fake. This is real." The FBI's forensic experts confirmed it. Karen Peterson knew she was using forgeries. She knew she was committing fraud. And when she got caught, instead of taking responsibility, she ran. A reporter raised her hand. "Mrs. Mitchell, Karen's video claimed you had connections that helped you manipulate the system. How do you respond?" "By pointing to facts," I said. "I'm a working mother. My husband is a real estate developer. We're not wealthy or connected. We simply had our grandmother's old documents. That's Italiano." Karen, on the other hand, hired one of the most expensive attorneys in the state, Marcus Webb, who is now in federal custody for orchestrating a $12 million fraud scheme. Who really had the connections? Another reporter: "What do you say to people who think you're being vindictive?" I'd ask them, "What would you do if someone tried to steal your home, your family's legacy? Would you just accept it, or would you fight back with the truth?" I paused. I chose truth, and I'll keep choosing it, no matter how many lies Karen tells. The press conference went viral. Within hours, the narrative shifted. People started investigating Karen's background, finding her previous lawsuits, her ex-husband's protective order, her history of fraud accusations. The tide of public opinion turned. But Karen wasn't done fighting. That afternoon, Thomas Reynolds called with shocking news. Sarah Siren filed an emergency motion in civil court. She's claiming you defamed her during the press conference. She wants a restraining order against you and is suing for emotional distress damages of $2 million. She's suing me while she's a fugitive. Her new attorney filed it on her behalf. And get this, the attorney is Marcus Webb's law partner, Richard Cross. The same Richard Cross who contacted Mark Sullivan about his backyard. "They're all in on it," I said, understanding dawning. "The whole law firm." "It appears so. The FBI is investigating Cross now, too. But Sarah, this gets worse. The motion claims you've been harassing Karen, that you fabricated evidence against her, and that the FBI investigation is a result of your false accusations. That's insane. But we have to respond. The hearing is Monday, September 11th. Over the weekend, our legal team worked around the clock preparing our defense. Agent Chun provided sealed FBI documents showing Karen's guilt. Michelle Torres, the forensic document expert, prepared detailed testimony about the forgeries. Even Ron Peterson, Karen's ex-husband, submitted a written statement describing Karen's history of fraud schemes. But the emotional toll was devastating. Emma had nightmares about strangers breaking into our house. David barely slept, checking security cameras every hour. I jumped at every sound, constantly looking over my shoulder. Sunday evening, Barbara came over with dinner, homemade Chinese dumplings. "You look exhausted," she said, setting food on our kitchen table. When did you last eat? I don't remember, I admitted. Barbara sat down, her red glasses reflecting the kitchen light. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I've been HOA president for 8 years. I've seen boundary disputes, neighbor feuds, all kinds of drama. But this, ... This is different. Karen isn't just greedy. She's unhinged, and that makes her unpredictable. I know. No, I don't think you do, Barbara said seriously. I did some research into Karen's past. Before she moved here, she lived in Nevada. She sued 3 different neighbors. They're over property lines. All 3 cases were dismissed when judges found her evidence suspicious. Then she moved to Arizona. Same pattern, 2 lawsuits, both dismissed. Then she came here. She's done this before, repeatedly. And each time she lost, she escalated. In Nevada, she slashed a neighbor's tires. In Arizona, she sent threatening letters. Sarah, I'm worried about what she'd do when she loses this time. The FBI will catch her eventually. Will they? Barbara asked. She's been evading them for 4 days. She knows how to disappear. And she's clearly getting help. Someone is funding her legal battles. Someone is hiding her. Until she's caught, you're in danger. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. The courthouse was packed. Reporters, curious neighbors, victims of Marcus Webb's scheme who wanted to see justice. Karen wasn't present, but her attorney Richard Cross was a thin man with slick-back hair and an expensive suit. Judge Martinez presided, a stern woman in her 50s who clearly had no patience for nonsense. Mr. Cross, she began, your client is a fugitive from federal custody. She cut off her ankle monitor and fled. Why should this court entertain any motion filed on her behalf? Your Honor, Krause said smoothly, my client maintains her innocence. She removed the monitoring device because she feared for her safety. Mrs. Mitchell has orchestrated a campaign of harassment. Stop, Judge Martinez interrupted. I've reviewed the FBI affidavits. Your client used forged documents in an attempt to fraudulently claim property. She's facing federal charges for conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction. Are you seriously arguing she's the victim here? The FBI's investigation is based on Mrs. Mitchell's false accusations. Mr. Cross, I'm warning you. I've also reviewed the forensic analysis of the documents. The 1968 deed your client presented was created using technology that didn't exist in Unless you're claiming time travel, this was fraud. Motion denied. Cross's face reddened. Your Honor, I'd like to submit additional evidence. No. Motion denied. Furthermore, I'm issuing a protective order for the Mitchell family. Karen Peterson is to have no contact, direct or indirect, with Sarah Mitchell, her family, or her property. If she violates this order, she faces additional criminal charges. This hearing is concluded. Krause gathered his papers angrily and stormed out. As he passed our table, he leaned in and whispered, "You just made a big mistake." "Was that a threat?" Thomas demanded, standing up. But Cross was already gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed us. "Mrs. Micho, how do you feel about the judge's decision?" "Relieved," I said honestly. "But I won't feel safe until Karen is in custody." That relief was short-lived. Tuesday morning, Emma's school called. "Mrs. Mitchell, Emma didn't arrive for first period." "Is she homesick?" My heart stopped. "What?" "I dropped her off myself at 7. I hung up and immediately called David. Then the FBI, then the school back. Panic clawed at my throat. Agent Chun arrived at the school within 15 minutes. The school's security footage showed Emma entering the building at 7:47 a.m. Then, at 8:15, she walked out the side entrance with a woman wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. "That's Karen," I said immediately, recognizing her posture, her walk. "How did she get Emma to leave willingly?" Agent Morrison wondered. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. "Hello, Sarah," Karen's voice, cold and satisfied. "Where's my daughter?" I screamed. "Safe! For now?" "You see, Sarah, you took everything from me. My home, my reputation, my freedom. So, I'm taking what you love most. Karen, don't hurt her, please. She's just a child. Just like you're just a homeowner. Karen laughed bitterly. I want what's mine. Sign over the corner lot, the 400 square meters I was claiming. Put it in my name. Then you'll get Emma back. You're insane. That land isn't yours. It should have been. That property would have saved us. Do you know what it's like to lose everything? To watch your husband's business fail? To be drowning in debt with nowhere to turn? Marcus offered me a way out. A legal way. But you had to ruin it. Karen, listen to me. You have until 6 p.m. today. Sign the property over, or Emma learns what real consequences feel like. The line went dead. Agent Chun was already on her radio. All units, we have a kidnapping. Victim is Emma Mitchell, 13 years old. Suspect is Karen Peterson, armed and dangerous. Issue an Amber Alert immediately. I collapsed into a chair, David's arms around me. They'll find her. Kept sailing. They'll find her. But hours passed. The FBI traced the call to a burner phone, already discarded in a trash can downtown. Security cameras showed Karen's car, a borrowed vehicle registered to someone named Linda Shaw, driving north on Highway 2. Roadblocks were set up, but Karen knew the book. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text message. A photo of Emma, tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, eyes wide with fear. Below the photo, 3 hours left. I'm not bluffing. Agent Morrison studied the photo. This warehouse? I recognize it. It's the old Peterson manufacturing building, about 40 miles north. Karen's father-in-law owned it before the business collapsed. It's been abandoned for 2 years. Let's go, I shouted. Mrs. Mitchell! You can't! That's my daughter! I'm going. FBI tactical teams mobilized. Helicopters were scrambled. At 4:30 p.m., we arrived at the warehouse complex. A sprawling, decaying, industrial site surrounded by overgrown fields. She could be in any of these buildings, Agent Chun said. Studying maps. We need to search, systematically. No time, I said. Karen wants me. She wants to see me suffer. She'll be in the main building. Somewhere she can watch me arrive. How do you know? Because I know how she thinks. This isn't about Emma. It's about hurting me. Against protocol, Agent Morrison agreed. All right, we'll approach the main building. But, Mrs. Mitchell, you stay behind our tactical team. Understood? I nodded, though I had no intention of staying back if Emma was in danger. The main warehouse loomed ahead, broken windows like empty eye sockets, rusted metal siding creaking in the wind. FBI agents surrounded the building. Through a window, we saw movement, a figure pacing. Agent Chun's radio crackled. We have visual on the suspect. Second floor, eastern corner. The hostage appears unharmed. Move in, Morrison ordered. But then Karen's voice echoed through a loudspeaker she'd rigged. Stop right there, or the girl falls. We, fru. Fruze. Karen appeared in a second-floor window, holding Emma by the arm. My daughter looked terrified but unharmed. Mom! Emma cried out. I'm here, baby. It's going to be okay. No, it's not, Karen said, her voice breaking. Nothing's okay. You ruined everything. Sarah, everything. That property was supposed to save us. The plan was perfect. But you had to fight back. Karen, let Emma go. She hasn't done anything to you. Neither had I done anything to you. I was just taking what should have been mine. Karen pulled Emma closer to the window. Below was a 20-foot drop onto concrete. Please, I begged. Please don't hurt her. Sign over the property. Right now. I have the papers ready. Sign them, or I drop her. Agent Morrison stepped forward. Mrs. Peterson, you're only making this worse. Let Emma go, and we can talk. I'm done talking, Karen screamed. I'm done with all of you. Marcus promised this would work. He said the forgeries were perfect. But you had to have those stupid old papers from your stupid grandmother. That's when I understood. You're not doing this for the property anymore, are you? You just want to hurt me? Karen's face contorted with rage and pain. Yes. I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to lose something you can't get back. Then take me, I said, stepping forward despite Morrison's restraining hand. Let Emma go. Take me instead. You want revenge? Here I am. Karen stared at me, breathing hard. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Emma did something incredibly brave. She stomped on Karen's foot, hard, and twisted away. Karen lunged for her, lost her balance, and fell. The scream seemed to last forever. Karen hit the ground with a sickening thud, 20 feet below. Medical teams rushed forward. Emma stood in the window, shaking, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm coming, baby. FBI agents stormed the building. I ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. When I reached Emma, I grabbed her in my arms, holding her so tight she gasped. It's over, I whispered. It's over. But downstairs, Karen was still alive. Barely. Paramedics worked frantically. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, her eyes found mine. It should have been mine, she whispered. It should have been mine. 2 days later, while Karen lay in the hospital under armed guard with a broken spine and shattered pelvis, Agent Chun called with news that changed everything. Sarah, we decoded Marcus Webb's laptop files. You need to see this. She showed me a folder labeled Phase 3, Final Acquisition. Inside were blueprints for demolishing not just my house, but 7 other properties in Pine Valley, plans for a luxury development, and the investor funding the whole scheme. A shell corporation owned by someone we'd trusted from the very beginning. Has anyone you trusted ever betrayed you in an unthinkable way? Someone who seemed to be on your side, but was actually part of the problem. Share your experiences below, because sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never suspected. In the final part, you'll discover who was really behind the entire operation, how deep the conspiracy went, and what ultimate justice looked like for Karen, Marcus Webb, and their mysterious partner. The answer will shock you. I haven't told you this yet. When FBI agents examined the warehouse where Karen held Emma, they found something that made my blood freeze. A second room prepared and waiting. Inside, chains, soundproofing, supplies for a long-term captivity. Karen hadn't planned to just scare us and let Emma go. She'd planned to keep her. For weeks, maybe months, the FBI found a handwritten schedule. Day 1, initial contact. Day 7, first proof of life. Day 30, final demands. We'd interrupted her on day 1. If we'd arrived even an hour later, Emma would have disappeared completely, and according to the schedule, Karen never planned to return her at all. Even if we'd given her the property, Karen fell while trying to hurt Emma, and survived with catastrophic injuries. FBI decoded Marcus Webb's laptop, revealing Phase 3, plans to demolish multiple properties. The investor behind it all was someone we trusted. Agent Chun opened her laptop in our living room. Her face grave. David, Emma, Thomas Reynolds, and Barbara Chun gathered around. What we saw made no sense at first. The shell corporation funding Marcus Webb's operation is called Cascade Properties, LLC. Agent Chun explained. Registered in Delaware. Nearly impossible to trace. But our financial crimes unit broke through the layers. The principal owner is... double quotes. She paused. Richard Cross, Karen's new attorney, I asked, confused. We already knew he was involved. Not just involved. He's the mastermind. Marcus Webb was just the public face. Cross has been running property fraud schemes for 15 years across 7 states. He identifies valuable properties, creates elaborate forgery operations, hires desperate people like Karen to be the face of lawsuits, and when owners settle or lose, he acquires the properties through shell companies. Barbara's face went pale. How many properties in Pine Valley? 9. He targeted 9 corner properties, including yours, Sarah. The plan was to acquire them over 2 years, demolish the houses, and build a luxury townhome development. Projected profit, $43 million. But why target corner lots specifically? David asked. Agent Morrison pulled up architectural drawings on the laptop, because corner lots can be subdivided and rezoned. Cross had already bribed city planning officials to approve his development plans. Once he controlled the 9 properties, he'd have owned enough contiguous land to build 80 luxury units. Your house, Sarah, was the keystone property, right in the center. Without it, the whole development fails. I stared at the blueprints showing my grandmother's house demolished, replaced by generic townhomes. So this was never about Karen wanting my land. She was just a pawn. Exactly, Agent Chun said. Cross recruited her after her husband's business failed. Promised her $250,000 if she successfully claimed your property. When you fought back and exposed the forgeries, Cross tried to salvage the operation by having Karen escalate to intimidation, then kidnapping. And Phase 3? Thomas asked. Agent Morrison's expression darkened. If Karen had succeeded in taking Emma, Cross's plan was to hold her until you signed over the property. Then ... Quotes, he hesitated. Then what? Primera dema endith. Then Karen was supposed to eliminate both you and Emma. Make it look like a murder-suicide desperate mother kills daughter and herself after losing property dispute. Cross had already drafted news stories, social media posts, everything needed to control the narrative. Emma grabbed my hand, trembling. Barbara gasped. David stood up, fists clenched. That's premeditated murder, Thomas said quietly. Yes, which is why Richard Cross is being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, in addition to fraud, racketeering, and kidnapping. He's facing life in prison without parole. Where is he now? I asked. In custody. FBI arrested him this morning, at his office. He was actually in the middle of a consultation with another victim, trying to convince an elderly couple to settle a fake boundary dispute for $90,000. Over the next weeks, the full scope of the conspiracy emerged. Richard Cross had run similar operations in California, Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington. Total confirmed victims, 114 families. Total estimated fraud, $38 million. He'd employed 12 different attorneys, recruited 43 plaintiffs like Karen, bribed 7 city officials, and forged over 200 historical documents. Marcus Webb, facing 30 years in prison, agreed to cooperate fully. His testimony revealed the operation's intricate details, how Cross recruited desperate people drowning in debt, how he created forgeries using antique paper and period-appropriate ink, how he researched property histories to make claims seem plausible. The Mitchell case was supposed to be simple. Webb testified in court. Karen Peterson had the perfect victim profile. Sympathetic, financially desperate, willing to lie convincingly. We researched your grandmother's property extensively. We knew you'd inherited it. Knew you were emotionally attached. We thought you'd settle rather than fight. What made you think that? The prosecutor asked. Because 92% of targets settle. They don't have the resources or documentation to fight back. But Sarah Mitchell had something we didn't anticipate. Her grandmother's meticulous records. When she produced that authenticated 1975 survey, we knew we were in trouble. So you escalated to intimidation. Cross ordered it. He'd invested too much money bribing officials, creating the development plans. He couldn't afford to fail. So he told Karen to scare the Mitchells into settling. And when that didn't work, Webb looked down. Cross authorized Phase 2, the kidnapping. He told Karen it was the only way she'd get paid. She was desperate enough to try it. In another courtroom, Karen Peterson faced her own trial. The fall had left her paralyzed from the waist down. She appeared in a wheelchair, facing charges of fraud, forgery, kidnapping, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Her public defender tried to argue she was manipulated by Cross and Webb, that she was a victim too. But the evidence was overwhelming. Her journals, showing detailed stalking of our family. Her communications with Cross discussing permanent solutions, the warehouse room she'd prepared for Emma's long-term captivity. I attended every day of her trial. On the witness stand, I looked directly at Karen as I testified. "She told me the property should have been hers," I said. "She claimed my grandmother stole it. But the truth is, Karen was willing to destroy a child, murder a family, and demolish a 50-year legacy for money she was never even guaranteed to receive. That's not desperation. That's evil." Karen stared at me with dead eyes. No remorse, no apology. Just bitter resentment. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. "Guilty on all counts." At sentencing, Judge Rodriguez addressed Karen directly. "Mrs. Peterson, you had choices. When your husband's business failed, you could have filed bankruptcy, sought legitimate employment, asked for help. Instead, you chose to participate in a criminal conspiracy. When that failed, you chose to terrorize a family. When that failed, you chose to kidnap a child. Your own testimony shows you were prepared to murder that child and her mother. I've seen career criminals with more conscience than you've displayed." Karen said nothing. "You are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for fraud and forgery, 25 years for kidnapping, and 15 years for attempted murder. Sentences to run consecutively. That's 65 years total. At your age, this is effectively a life sentence. May you spend that time reflecting on the harm you've caused." Karen was led away in her wheelchair. I felt no satisfaction, only relief. Marcus Webb received 32 years. Richard Cross received life without parole after the jury found him guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. The bribed city officials received sentences ranging from 5 to 12 years, but the legal battles weren't over. The 9 families Cross had targeted in Pine Valley filed a class-action lawsuit against his law firm, seeking damages. Additionally, all the families Cross had defrauded across 7 states joined together, 114 families, united in demanding justice. The civil case took 8 months. In the end, Cross's assets, including 37 properties, 12 luxury vehicles, offshore accounts, and his law firm's holdings, were seized and liquidated. Total recovery, $41 million, distributed among the victims. Our family received $280,000 in damages, plus legal fees. Other families received more or less, depending on what they'd lost. The elderly couple who'd paid Cross $90,000 got their money back with interest. But money couldn't restore what had been taken. Several victims had lost their homes before the fraud was exposed. 3 had declared bankruptcy. 1 elderly man had died from stress-related heart failure before seeing justice. The emotional scars ran deep. For our family, healing was slow. Emma had nightmares for months. She started therapy, working through the trauma of her kidnapping. David became hypervigilant about security, installing new cameras, alarms, reinforced doors. I struggled with trust, wondering if every friendly neighbor had ulterior motives. Barbara Choon became our anchor. She organized community healing sessions, brought in counselors, helped families connect with resources. Her leadership transformed Pine Valley from a place torn apart by suspicion into a community bonded by shared survival. "We went through something terrible together," Barbara said at a community gathering 6 months after the trials ended. "But we came out stronger. We learned to verify trust, to question authority, to stand up for truth. And most importantly, we learned we could count on each other." The old Peterson house next door stayed empty for a year. Eventually, a young family bought it. The Johnsons, with 2 small children. I was terrified at first, watching them move in, wondering if history would repeat. But Mrs. Johnson came over on their first day with homemade cookies. "I heard what happened here," she said gently. "I can't imagine how hard that was, but I want you to know we're just a normal family looking for a quiet place to raise our kids. No agenda, no schemes, just neighbors." I started crying. She hugged me. And slowly, I began to heal. A year after Karen's sentencing, I did something I'd been avoiding. I visited her in prison. She was brought to the visitor room in her wheelchair, hair gray now, face aged beyond her years. When she saw me, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe fear. "Why are you here?" she asked flatly. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe I needed to see that you're really locked away. Maybe I needed closure. Or maybe I just needed to understand why." "Why what?" "Why you did it. You had opportunities to stop, to walk away, to confess. Why didn't you?" Karen was silent for a long moment. Then, "Because I felt entitled to it. Your grandmother's house, that land, it represented everything I didn't have. Security, legacy, respect. I thought if I could just take it, my life would be better. But you know what I learned?" "What?" "Taking something doesn't make it yours. Even if I'd won, even if I'd gotten the property and the money, it would have been built on lies, and lies eventually collapse." She looked down at her paralyzed legs, sometimes literally. "Do you regret it?" "I regret getting caught. I regret failing. I regret that I'll die in prison. But do I regret trying to take what I wanted?" She met my eyes. "Ask me again in 20 years. I left without saying goodbye. Some people never change. They just run out of opportunities to do harm. Today, 3 years later, life is peaceful. Emma is 16, thriving in high school, planning for college. David's business is successful. My landscape architecture practice has grown ironically. I now design gardens for 3 families who were victimized by Cross's scheme. My grandmother's sycamore tree still stands in the corner of our yard. 63 years old now, its branches reaching toward the sky. I sit beneath it sometimes, reading her old journals, feeling connected to her resilience. Barbara Chun retired as HOA president last year, but remains active in the community. We have coffee together every Tuesday. She still wears her red blazer and red glasses, still fights for what's right. The Pine Valley HOA implemented new protections after our ordeal: mandatory verification of all legal claims, free legal consultations for members facing property disputes, educational seminars about fraud prevention. Other HOAs across the country have adopted similar measures. Our nightmare became a blueprint for protecting others. Sometimes I think about those 3 months when my life was consumed by Karen's lies, the fear, the anger, the exhaustion. But I also think about what I learned. That truth is worth fighting for. That community matters. That resilience is a choice. My grandmother Rose built this house with her own hands, planted that tree as a symbol of permanence and growth. Karen tried to destroy that legacy. But legacy isn't about land or property. It's about the values we pass down, the stands we take, the truth we defend. And that legacy, that can never be stolen. Last week, I received a letter from the FBI. They'd arrested another attorney running a similar scheme in Florida. The attorney had studied Cross's methods, but this time, victims fought back immediately because they'd heard about our case. The investigation took 3 weeks instead of 3 years. No one lost their homes. No one was kidnapped. Agent Chun wrote, "Your willingness to stand up and fight didn't just save your family, it saved countless others. Thank you for refusing to be silent." I framed that letter and hung it in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. When we speak truth, when we demand justice, when we refuse to be victims, we change the world. One person at a time, one truth at a time, one stand at a time. If you're facing a property dispute, boundary issue, or suspicious legal claim, don't settle out of fear. Verify everything. Consult multiple attorneys. Research the person making claims. Trust your instincts. And never, ever assume the system will protect you without your active participation. Karen Peterson is serving 65 years. Marcus Webb is serving 32 years. Richard Cross will die in prison. Justice was served, but justice only came because one family refused to give up. Beat that family. Thank you for following this journey. Share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. And remember, your property, your legacy, your truth, they're worth fighting for. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never let the Karens win.